Driving is not a solo activity. Every time you get behind the wheel in Maryland, you share the road with pedestrians, cyclists, motorcyclists, large commercial vehicles, school buses, emergency responders, service and utility workers. Safe driving is not just about controlling your vehicle. It is about awareness, courtesy, patience, and responsibility toward others. In this module, we will discuss how to safely share the road with different road users and understand the laws that protect them. Let's begin with pedestrian right-of-way. 1. Pedestrian right-of-way. Pedestrians are the most vulnerable road users. They have no protective structure, no airbags, no seatbelts. When a vehicle strikes a pedestrian, the consequences are often severe. Maryland law on pedestrian right-of-way. Drivers must stop for pedestrians in marked crosswalks, in unmarked crosswalks at intersections, when pedestrians are crossing legally with the signal, when pedestrians are in your half of the roadway, when pedestrians are approaching closely from the opposite half of the roadway. Even if a pedestrian crosses slowly, you must wait. Special areas of concern. Drivers must be extra alert near schools, in residential neighborhoods, near bus stops, in parking lots. At night, pedestrians may step into traffic unexpectedly, be distracted by phones, have limited mobility, be children who misjudge speed. Key safety practice: always scan sidewalks and intersections. Remember, pedestrians always lose in a collision with a vehicle. 2. Emergency and service vehicles. Emergency vehicles include police vehicles, fire trucks, ambulances. Service vehicles include tow trucks, utility trucks, roadside assistance vehicles, highway maintenance vehicles. When emergency vehicles approach with flashing lights and sirens, you must yield immediately, move to the right side of the roadway, stop until the vehicle passes. Do not panic brake, block intersections. Try to follow behind the emergency vehicle. Why this matters? Seconds matter in emergencies. Blocking or delaying emergency vehicles can cost lives. 3. Move over law. Maryland's move over law requires drivers to move into an adjacent lane when approaching stopped emergency or service vehicles displaying flashing lights. If unable to safely move over, slow down significantly. This law applies to police vehicles, fire trucks, ambulances, tow trucks, utility vehicles, highway response teams. Failure to comply can result in fines, points on your driving record, increased penalties if injury occurs. Why the move over law exists. Roadside workers and emergency responders work just feet from moving traffic. Moving over creates a safety buffer. If you cannot move over, reduce speed immediately. Four, large trucks. Large trucks and commercial vehicles operate very differently from passenger vehicles. They require longer stopping distances, wider turning space, larger blind spots, no zone blind spots. Trucks have large blind spots, directly in front, directly behind, along both sides. If you cannot see the truck driver's mirrors, the driver likely cannot see you. Turning and space. Trucks may swing wide to make right turns. Never squeeze between a truck and the curb. Cut off a truck. Tailgate a truck. Remember, a fully loaded truck can weigh 20 to 30 times more than a car. It cannot stop quickly. Safe driving tips around trucks. Pass quickly and safely. Do not linger. Give extra following distance. Avoid driving beside a truck for long periods. Anticipate wide turns. Respect the space trucks need. 5. School buses and school zones. School areas require maximum caution. Children may run into the street unexpectedly, cross without looking, misjudge vehicle speed. School zones. When entering a school zone, reduce speed to posted limits. Watch for crossing guards. Obey flashing school zone lights. Avoid distractions. School buses. When a school bus activates red flashing lights and extends its stop arm, you must stop at least 20 feet away. Remain stopped until lights stop flashing and the bus moves on two-way roads without a median. All traffic in both directions must stop. On divided highways with a physical barrier, opposing traffic does not stop. Violations carry heavy fines, points, license suspension. Protecting children is a shared responsibility. 6. Motorcycles, bicycles, mopeds, and scooters. These road users are smaller and less visible. Drivers must actively look for them. Motorcycles appear smaller than they are, may be hidden in blind spots, stop more quickly than cars. Drivers must check mirrors carefully. Look twice before changing lanes. Give full lane width. Motorcycles are entitled to a full lane. Never assume a motorcycle is far away just because it looks small. Bicycles. In Maryland, bicycles are vehicles. Cyclists have the same rights and responsibilities as drivers. Drivers must provide at least 3 feet of space when passing. Yield to cyclists in bike lanes. Watch carefully before opening doors. Dooring, opening a vehicle door into a cyclist's path, can cause serious injury. Always check mirrors before opening your door. Mopeds and scooters. Mopeds and scooters travel at varying speeds, may accelerate slowly, are vulnerable in collisions. Treat them like motorcycles. Do not crowd or cut them off. Sharing the road safely requires patience, awareness, respect, obedience to traffic laws. Remember, pedestrians are vulnerable. Emergency responders save lives. Truck drivers need space. Children are unpredictable. Cyclists and motorcyclists are easy to miss. Before every maneuver, ask yourself, who else is sharing this road with me? Driving is a privilege. Safe sharing protects you, your passengers, other road users, the entire Maryland community. Choose safety, choose awareness, choose responsibility.
Speeding is one of the most common unsafe driving behaviors on the road. Many drivers do it, some do it because they are late, some do it out of habit, some believe a few extra miles per hour does not matter, and some simply do not realize how much risk speed creates. But speeding is dangerous for a simple reason. The faster you travel, the less time you have to react, the longer it takes to stop, and the greater the force of a crash if one occurs. In this lesson, we will explain what speeding really means, why it is dangerous, how it affects stopping distance and crash severity, and why even small increases in speed can have major consequences. Because on the road, speed does not just save time, it changes risk. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to explain how speeding affects reaction time, stopping distance, and crash severity. You should also understand why posted speed limits are only part of the story, and why safe speed depends on conditions, not just the sign. What is speeding? Many people think speeding only means driving above the posted speed limit, but speeding can also mean driving too fast for conditions. For example, a posted speed limit may be legal in clear daylight on a dry road, but that same speed may be unsafe in rain, fog, snow, heavy traffic, work zones, school zones, construction areas, or when visibility is reduced. So speeding is not just about a number on a sign. It is also about whether the speed is safe for the situation. A legal limit does not remove your responsibility to adjust for conditions. Safe driving means choosing a speed that gives you enough time and space to stay in control. Why do people speed? Often it comes down to habit and emotion. Some drivers are running late. Some are impatient. Some feel pressure from traffic behind them. Some are used to driving fast and stop noticing how risky it is. Others assume that empty roads make higher speeds safe, and some feel overconfident. They believe, I'm a good driver. I can handle it. I know this road. It's only a little over. But confidence does not change physics. A skilled driver still needs time to react. A familiar road can still present an unexpected hazard, and only a little over can still mean a much greater crash risk than the driver realizes. Speed reduces reaction time. The faster you drive, the farther your vehicle travels before you can react. Even an alert driver needs time to see the hazard, recognize the danger, decide what to do, and move their foot to the brake. That time may only be a second or two, but at higher speed, that second or two covers much more distance. So when speed goes up, your safety margin goes down. A child steps into the road. A car ahead brakes suddenly. A light changes. A truck changes lanes. A curve tightens. At lower speeds, you may have time to react. At higher speeds, you may not. That is why speeding is not just about going faster, it is about losing time. Speed also increases stopping distance. Stopping distance includes two parts. First, the distance you travel while reacting. Second, the distance your vehicle needs to actually stop once braking begins. As speed increases, both distances increase. That means a small increase in speed can create a much larger increase in total stopping distance. So if a driver thinks, I can still stop in time, that belief may be wrong, especially if the road is wet, visibility is poor, tires are worn, traffic is heavy, or the driver is tired or distracted. The faster you go, the more distance you need. And if you do not have that distance, you do not have that safety. Another major danger of speeding is crash severity. Higher speed does not just make crashes more likely, it makes them more violent. When speed increases, the force released in a collision also increases. That means greater damage to vehicles, greater force on the human body, more serious injuries, and a lower chance of survival. This matters especially in pedestrian crashes, side impact crashes, motorcycle crashes, rear-end crashes, and crashes involving fixed objects like poles, barriers, or trees. A crash at one speed and a crash at a much higher speed are not the same event. The difference in force can mean the difference between a close call and a hospital visit, a repair and a fatality, a survivable injury and a life-changing one. Speeding in different environments. Not all roads carry the same speeding risks. In residential areas, speeding is especially dangerous because children may appear suddenly, parked cars can block visibility, and driveways create unexpected conflict points. On urban roads, there may be more intersections, more pedestrians, more cyclists, more turning vehicles, and more signals. On rural roads, drivers may face limited lighting, sharp curves, animals, and higher speed impacts. On highways, speed may feel normal, but the stopping distances are much greater and crash severity is often higher. In school zones and work zones, speeding is especially unacceptable because vulnerable people may be close to the roadway. Safe speed depends on environment. A speed that feels manageable in one place may be completely unsafe in another. Just a little over is still risky. One of the most common myths about speeding is this. A little over the speed limit doesn't matter, but it does matter. Even a small increase in speed reduces reaction time and increases stopping distance. It also increases crash force. That means the difference between 25 and 35, 35 and 45, 55 and 65 is not just 10 extra miles per hour. It is less time, more distance, and more force. Drivers often underestimate how quickly risk grows with speed. That is why just a little over is still not a safe excuse. Speeding and other risk factors. Speed becomes even more dangerous when combined with other risk factors. For example, speed plus rain means less traction and longer stopping distance. Speed plus fog means less visibility and less time to respond. Speed plus snow or ice means a much greater chance of skidding. Speed plus distraction means the driver may not even begin braking in time. Speed plus fatigue means slower judgment and weaker control. Speed plus heavy traffic means less space and more sudden braking. Unsafe driving behaviors often combine, and when they do, the crash risk rises sharply. That is why safe driving is not just about managing one problem at a time. It is about reducing risk across the whole situation. Why speeding doesn't save as much time as drivers think. Many drivers speed because they think it will save a lot of time. But in many real-world situations, the time saved is much smaller than expected. On city roads, speeding often just gets a driver to the next red light faster. In traffic, speeding may only move the driver 1 or 2 cars ahead. And on short trips, the time difference may only be a minute or two. So the driver takes on more crash risk, more legal risk, more stress, and more financial risk for very little actual gain. That is not efficiency. That is poor risk management. How to avoid speeding? The best way to avoid speeding is to build habits that support calmer driving. Leave earlier. Running late is one of the strongest triggers for speeding. Check your speed regularly. Do not assume you know how fast you are going. Adjust for conditions. A safe driver does not say, the sign says 55, so 55 is always safe. Keep a safe following distance. If you are too close to the vehicle ahead, speed becomes harder to manage safely. And do not let other drivers pressure you. If someone behind you wants to drive faster, that does not give them control over your judgment. Your responsibility is to drive safely, not emotionally. A simple safe speed question. Here is one of the best questions a driver can ask. Can I stop safely if something changes right now? If the answer is no, your speed is too high for the situation. That question works in neighborhoods, highways, rain, fog, work zones, school zones, and nighttime conditions. It forces the driver to think in terms of control, not convenience. And control is what safe speed is really about. Key takeaway. Here is the key takeaway. Speed gives you less time. Less time means less ability to react, less space to stop, less ability to recover, and more danger if something goes wrong. Safe driving is not just about getting there. It is about getting there with enough control to protect yourself and everyone around you.
What you're about to see will change your mind about speeding. Two identical cars, one travelling at 60, the other at 65. A sudden change in the road ahead, and both drivers first react, and then, a moment later, they brake. And things start to get interesting. Down here, the difference is extraordinary. In the last 5 metres of braking, you wipe off half your speed. So this car is still doing 32 k's when it hits. This one also hits, but only at 5 k's. So no matter how good a driver you are, 5 k's difference up there makes 27 k's difference down here.
Alcohol and drugs affect driving in dangerous ways, and one of the biggest dangers is this. Impairment often begins before the driver realizes it. A person may feel okay. They may believe they are still in control. They may think they can drive a short distance, drive slowly, or be extra careful. But impairment does not wait for permission. It affects judgment, attention, coordination, reaction time, and decision-making. That means the very skills a driver needs most are the skills that become weaker first. In this lesson, we will explain how alcohol and drugs affect driving, review the risks of both illegal and prescription substances, discuss open container and child passenger concerns, and emphasize why the safest choice is simple. If you are impaired or may be impaired, do not drive. By the end of this lesson, you should understand how alcohol and drugs impair safe vehicle operation. Recognize that legal substances can still create unsafe driving conditions. Identify serious risk factors such as open alcohol containers and transporting children, and apply safe alternatives before a dangerous decision becomes a crash, arrest, or tragedy. Alcohol affects the brain and body in ways that directly interfere with safe driving. It can reduce judgment. It can slow reaction time. It can affect coordination. It can interfere with vision and depth perception. It can reduce balance and physical control. And it can create false confidence. That false confidence is especially dangerous because an impaired driver may feel relaxed, bold, or in control, while actually becoming less capable of safe driving. This is why alcohol-related crashes often involve delayed braking, poor lane control, missed signals, unsafe turns, overcorrection, and failure to recognize danger in time. Impairment begins before the driver feels drunk enough to stop. That is why relying on how you feel is not a safe strategy. Many drivers make a dangerous mistake. They assume they will know when they are too impaired to drive. But alcohol affects judgment early. That means one of the first things alcohol changes is the driver's ability to judge their own condition. In other words, the very system you are relying on to decide if you are safe is already being affected. That is why people say things like, "I'm fine. I only had a little." I can still drive. It's not far. But distance does not protect you, and feeling okay is not the same as being safe. The safest decision is not to test your judgment after drinking. The safest decision is to plan not to drive at all. Alcohol is not the only substance that can impair driving. Drugs can also make driving dangerous. This includes illegal drugs, misused prescription medications, legally prescribed medications, and even some over-the-counter medicines. A drug does not have to be illegal to make driving unsafe if it causes drowsiness, slowed thinking, reduced coordination, blurred vision, dizziness, confusion, or delayed reactions. Then it can interfere with safe driving. This is especially dangerous when drivers assume, if a doctor gave it to me, it must be safe, or if I bought it over the counter, it can't be a problem. That is not always true. Legal does not always mean safe to drive on. In Maryland, controlled dangerous substances, often called CDS, can include illegal drugs as well as certain prescription medications when they are misused or when they impair the driver. Some substances affect alertness, some slow reaction time, some reduce coordination, some distort judgment, some make drivers overconfident, and some, especially when mixed with alcohol or other drugs, create even greater danger. This means a driver may be impaired by an illegal drug, by a medication taken incorrectly, by a medication mixed with alcohol, or by a prescribed medication that affects alertness even when taken as directed. The key point is simple. If a substance affects your ability to drive safely, it creates risk. And the road does not care whether the substance was legal, illegal, prescribed, or recreational. Many drivers overlook the warning labels on medications, but those labels matter. If a medication says, may cause drowsiness, use caution when operating machinery, avoid alcohol, may impair alertness, or may cause dizziness, you should take that seriously. Driving is operating machinery. Even if you have taken the medication before, the effect can vary depending on dose, timing, whether you are tired, whether you have eaten, and whether you are taking anything else. If you are unsure how a medication affects you, the safest approach is to avoid driving until you know. Never guess with impairment. An open alcohol container in a vehicle creates multiple problems. It may suggest recent or ongoing alcohol use. It can increase suspicion during a traffic stop or crash investigation. It reflects poor judgment around safe driving decisions, and it creates unnecessary legal and safety risk. Even if the driver claims they were not drinking, an open container inside the vehicle can still become a serious issue. The safest rule is simple. Alcohol belongs away from the driver, away from the passenger area, and never in a way that creates confusion, temptation, or risk. If alcohol is being transported, it should be handled lawfully and responsibly, not in a way that creates danger or doubt. Driving under the influence is dangerous in any situation. But when a child is in the vehicle, the seriousness becomes even greater. Why? Because a child depends completely on the adult driver for safety. They did not choose the risk, they cannot protect themselves, and they are especially vulnerable in a crash. When a driver chooses to operate a vehicle while impaired and a child is inside, that decision reflects a deeper level of danger and irresponsibility. In this course, the most important message is not just legal, it is moral. If a child is in the vehicle, the standard for safety must be even higher. No alcohol, no impairing drugs, no risky judgment, no excuses. Impairment rarely creates just one problem. It often combines with other dangerous behaviors. An impaired driver may speed without realizing it, follow too closely, drift between lanes, miss signals, overreact or underreact, forget seatbelts, make poor turning decisions, or become aggressive or careless. That is why impaired driving is so dangerous. It weakens multiple layers of safety at the same time, and when multiple risks combine, crash risk rises sharply. The consequences of impaired driving can be severe. They may include arrest, criminal charges, court involvement, fines, increased insurance costs, license suspension or revocation, ignition interlock requirements, job consequences, family consequences, and in the worst cases, serious injury or death. And even if no crash occurs, the legal and financial damage can be long-lasting. One bad decision can create years of consequences, thousands of dollars in costs, lost opportunities, and broken trust. That is why impaired driving is not just a traffic issue, it is a life issue. The best time to prevent impaired driving is before impairment begins. Make the decision early. Use a designated driver. Call a rideshare or taxi. Stay where you are if needed. Ask someone sober to drive. Hand over your keys before you are tempted to make a bad decision. This is especially important because once impairment starts, judgment gets weaker. That means the safest decision is the one made while fully sober, not the one made after drinking or after taking something that affects alertness. Before driving, ask yourself, have I had anything that could affect alertness, judgment, or coordination? Am I relying on feeling okay instead of facts? Did I plan a safe ride before this situation started? If the answer is uncertain, do not drive. Safe drivers do not gamble with impairment. They remove the risk before it becomes a crisis. Here is the key takeaway. If alcohol or drugs may affect you, do not drive. Do not guess. Do not test your luck. Do not trust, I feel okay. And do not turn a preventable choice into a permanent consequence. The safest impaired driving decision is the one that prevents the trip from happening at all.
One bad decision could potentially alter your life for the rest of your life, if you're lucky to survive. Crashes involving drinking and driving happen to and can happen to any one of us, irrespective of nationality, irrespective of creed, irrespective of religion or your ethnic background. We're all at risk.
Please bring the patient to shock trauma.
The hardest part of my life today is living with the injury, living with the fact that I only have one arm for the rest of my life. I was very involved with sports, had a great family, a lot of friends, was involved in student government, Students Against Destructive Decisions, National Art Honor Society, did very well in school growing up. Never thought that something like this would happen to me. Telly, who was the driver of the car, we had decided to go out to the Towson bars. As soon as we got there, I took the keys from her. I said, we're not going to drive, anywhere. I'm not giving you your keys back until we have a designated driver, unless we have a designated driver. Telly said she would be fine to drive, and we're heading down Providence Road from the highway, heading towards Lock Raven Reservoir, going very, very fast, between 80 to 100 miles an hour. We were impaired, and she wasn't, paying attention, and she lost control of the car and came off the side of the road, sideswiped this tree, which killed her on impact, and hit the other tree head on, splitting the car in half. Her crash was so bad they couldn't identify her. I remember friends telling me that her family dentist had to come identify the body by her teeth, because she was just so badly mangled in the car crash. I was trapped in the car. The fire department had to arrive and use the jaws of life to get me out of the car. I had a collapsed lung. I lost so much blood that they had to give me a blood transfusion in the ambulance so that I would survive on my way to shock trauma. Even though I'm a survivor, every day I have to suffer the consequences. I have to live with pain. I have to live with emotional stress, post-traumatic stress, anxiety, getting around, just daily living. Do you really want this? I don't want it for you.